The children of darkness. I could see nothing but the rain, but I could hear them all around me, and he was giving his command. They have no great power, these two, he was telling them in thoughts that had a curious simplicity to them, as if he were commanding vagrant children. Take them both prisoner. Gabrielle said, Lestat, don't fight. It's useless to prolong it. And I knew she was right, but I'd never surrendered to anybody in my life. And pulling her with me past the Hotel Dieu, I made for the bridge. We tore through the press of wet cloaks and mud-spattered carriages. Yet they were gaining upon us, rushing so fast they were almost invisible to mortals, and with only a little fear of us now. In the dark streets of the left bank, the game was finished. White faces appeared above and below me as though they were demonic cherubs, and when I tried to draw my weapon, I felt their hands on my arms. I heard Gabrielle say, let it be done. I held fast to my sword, but I couldn't stop them from lifting me off the ground. They were lifting Gabrielle too, and in a blaze of hideous images I understood where they were taking us. It was to Les Innocents, only yards away. I could already see the flicker of the bonfires that burned each night among the stinking open graves, the flames that were supposed to drive away the effluvia. I locked my arm around Gabrielle's neck and cried out that I couldn't bear that stench. But they were carrying us on swiftly through the darkness, through the gates and past the white marble crypts. Surely, you can't endure it, I said, struggling. So why do you live among the dead when you were made to feed on life? But I felt such revulsion now I couldn't keep it up, the verbal or physical struggle. All around us lay bodies in various states of decomposition, and even from the rich sepulchres there came that reek. And as we moved into the darker part of the cemetery, as we entered an enormous sepulchre, I realized that they, too, hated the stench as much as I. I could feel their disgust, and yet they opened their mouths and their lungs as if they were eating it. Gabrielle was trembling against me, her fingers digging into my neck. Through another doorway we passed, and then by dim torchlight, down an earthen stairs. The smell grew stronger. It seemed to ooze from the mud walls. I turned my face down and vomited a thin stream of glittering blood upon the steps beneath me, which vanished as we moved swiftly on. Live among graves, I said furiously. Tell me, why do you suffer hell already by your own choice? Silence, whispered one of them close to me, a dark-eyed female with a witch's mop of hair. You blasphemer, she said, you cursed profaner. Don't be a fool for the devil, darling, I sneered. We were eye to eye, unless he treats you a damn sight better than the Almighty. She laughed. Or rather, she started to laugh, and she stopped as if she weren't allowed to laugh. What a gay and interesting little get-together this was going to be. We were going lower and lower into the earth, flickering light the scrape of their bare feet on the dirt, filthy rags brushing my face. For an instant I saw a grinning skull, then another, then a heap of them filling a niche in the wall. I tried to wrench free, and my foot hit another heap and sent the bones clattering on the stairs. The vampires tightened their grip, trying to lift us higher. Now we passed the ghastly spectacle of rotted corpses fixed in the walls, like statues, bones swathed in rotted rags. This is too disgusting, I said with my teeth clenched. We had come to the foot of the steps and were being carried through a great catacomb. I could hear the low, rapid beat of kettle drums. Torches blazed ahead, and over a chorus of mournful wails there came other cries, distant but filled with pain. Yet something beyond these puzzling cries had caught my attention. Amid all the foulness, I sensed a mortal was near. It was Nicholas, and he was alive, and I could hear him. Vulnerable current of his thoughts mingled with his scent. And something was terribly wrong with his thoughts. They were chaos. I couldn't know if Gabrielle had caught it. We were quite suddenly thrown down together in the dust, and the others backed away from us. I climbed to my feet, lifting Gabrielle with me. And I saw that we were in a great domed chamber, scarcely illuminated by 3 torches, which the vampires held to form a triangle, in the center of which we stood, something huge and black to the back of the chamber. Smell of wood and pitch, smell of damp, moldering cloth, smell of living mortal, Nicholas there. Gabrielle's hair had come loose entirely from the ribbon, and it fell around her shoulders as she cleaved to me, looking about with seemingly calm, cautious eyes. Wails rose all around us, but the most piercing supplications came from those other beings we had heard before, creatures somewhere deep in the earth. and I realized these were entombed vampires screaming for blood, and screaming for forgiveness and release, screaming even for the fires of hell. The sound was as unbearable as the stench. No real thoughts from Nicky, only the formless shimmer of his mind. Was he dreaming? Was he mad? The roll of the drums was very loud, and very close, and yet those screams pierced the rumbling again and again, without rhythm or warning. The wailing of those nearest us died away, but the drums went on, the pounding suddenly coming from inside my head. Trying desperately not to clamp my hands to my ears, I looked about. A great circle had been formed, and there were 10 of them at least, these creatures. I saw young ones, old ones, men and women, a young boy, and all clothed in the remnants of human garments, caked with earth, feet bare, hair tangled with filth. There was the woman I had spoken to on the stairs, her well-shaped body clothed in a filthy robe, her quick black eyes glinting like jewels in the dirt as she studied us, and beyond these the advance guard were up here in the shadows beating the kettle drums. I begged silently for strength. I tried to hear Nicholas without actually thinking of him. Solemn vow, I shall get us all out of here, though at the moment I do not know exactly how. The drum beat was slowing, becoming an ugly cadence that made the alien feeling of fear a fist against my throat. One of the torch bearers approached. I could feel the anticipation of the others, a palpable excitement, as the flames were thrust at me. I snatched the torch from the creature, twisting his right hand, until he was flung down on his knees. With a hard kick, I sent him sprawling, and as the others rushed in, I swung the torch wide, driving them back. Then defiantly I threw down the torch. This caught them off guard, and I sensed a sudden quietness. The excitement was drained away, or rather it had lapsed into something more patient and less volatile. The drums beat insistently, but it seemed they were ignoring the drums. They were staring at the buckles on our shoes, at our hair, and at our faces. With such distress they appeared menacing and hungry, and the young boy with a look of anguish reached out to touch Gabriel. "Get back," I hissed, and he obeyed, snatching up the torch from the ground as he did, but I knew it for certain now. We were surrounded by envy and curiosity, and this was the strongest advantage we possessed. I looked from one to the other of them, and quite slowly I commenced to brush the filth from my frock coat and breeches. I smoothed my cloak as I straightened my shoulders. Then I ran a hand through my hair and stood with my arms folded, the picture of righteous dignity, gazing about. Gabrielle gave a faint smile. She stood composed, her hand on the hilt of her sword. The effect of this on the others was universal. Amazement. The dark-eyed female was enthralled. I winked at her. She would have been gorgeous if someone had thrown her into a waterfall and held her there for half an hour, and I told her so silently. She took 2 steps backwards and pulled closed her robe over her breasts. Interesting, very interesting indeed. What is the explanation for all this? I asked, staring at them one by one as if they were quite peculiar. Again Gabrielle gave her faint smile. "What are you meant to be?" I demanded. The images of chain-rattling ghosts who haunt cemeteries and ancient castles. They were glancing to one another, getting uneasy. The drums had stopped. "My childhood nurse many a time thrilled me with tales of such fiends," I said. "Told me they might at any moment leap out of the suits of armor in our house to carry me away screaming." I stomped my foot and dashed forward. "Is that what you are?" They shrieked and shrank back. The black-eyed woman didn't move, however. I laughed softly. "And your bodies are just like ours, aren't they?" I asked slowly. "Smooth, without flaw. And in your eyes I can see evidence of my own powers. Most strange." Confusion coming from them, and the howling in the walls seemed fainter, as if the entombed were listening in spite of their pain. "It is great fun living in filth and stench such as this?" I asked. "Is that why you do it?" Fear, envy, again. How had we managed to escape their fate? "Our leader is Satan," said the dark-eyed woman sharply. Cultured voice. She'd been something to reckon with when she was mortal, and we serve Satan as we are meant to do. "Why?" I asked politely. Consternation all around. Faint shimmer of Nicholas. Agitation without direction. "Had he heard my voice, you will bring down the wrath of God on all of us with your defiance," said the boy, the smallest of them, who couldn't have been more than 16 when he was made. "In vanity and wickedness you disregard the dark ways. You live among mortals. You walk in the places of light. And why don't you?" I asked. "Are you to go to heaven on white wings when this penitential sojourn of yours is ended? Is that what Satan promises? Salvation?" I wouldn't count on it if I were you. You will be thrown into the pit of hell for your sins, said one of the others, a tiny hag of a woman. You will have power to do evil on earth no more. When is that supposed to happen? I asked. For half a year I've been what I am. God and Satan have not troubled me. It is you who trouble me. They were paralyzed for the moment. Why hadn't we been struck dead when we entered the churches? How could we be what we were? It was very likely they could have been scattered now and beaten. But what about Nicky? If only his thoughts were directed, I could have gained some image of exactly what lay behind that great heap of mouldering black cloth. I kept my eyes on the vampires. Wood, pitch, a pyre, there, surely. And these damned torches. The dark-eyed woman edged in, no malice, only fascination. But the boy pushed her to the side, infuriating her. He stepped so close I could feel his breath on my face. Bastard, he said, you were made by the outcast Magnus in defiance of the coven and in defiance of the dark ways. And so you gave the dark gift to this woman in rashness and vanity as it was given to you. If Satan does not punish, said the tiny woman, we will punish as is our duty and our right. The boy pointed to the black draped pyre. He motioned for the others to draw back. The kettle drums came up again fast and loud. The circle widened, the torch-bearers drawing near to the cloth. Two of the others tore down the ragged drapery, great sheets of black serge that sent up the dust in a suffocating cloud. The pyre was as big as the one that had consumed Magnus. And on top of the pyre, in a crude wooden cage, Nicholas knelt, slumped against the bars. He stared blindly at us, and I could find no recognition in his face or his thoughts. The vampires held their torches high for us to see, and I could feel their excitement rising again as it had when they had first brought us into the room. Gabrielle was cautioning me with the press of her hand to be calm. Nothing changed in her expression. There were bluish marks on Nicky's throat. The lace of his shirt was filthy as were their rags, and his breeches were snagged and torn. He was in fact covered with bruises and drained almost to the point of death. The fear silently exploded in my heart, but I knew this was what they wanted to see. And I sealed it within. The cage is nothing. I can break it. And there are only 3 torches. The question is when to move, how. We would not perish like this, not like this. I found myself staring coldly at Nicholas, coldly at the bundles of kindling, the crude chopped wood. The anger rolled out of me. Gabrielle's face was a perfect mask of hate. The group seemed to feel this and to move ever so slightly away from it, and then to draw in, confused and uncertain again. But something else was happening. The circle was tightening. Gabrielle touched my arm. The leader is coming, she said. A door had opened somewhere. The drums surged, and it seemed those imprisoned in the walls went into agony, pleading to be forgiven and released. The vampires around us took up the cries in a frenzy. It was all I could do not to cover my ears. A strong instinct told me not to look at the leader, but I couldn't resist him. And slowly I turned to look at him and measure his powers again.